this gets into the neuroacoustic element, which I think is fascinating. And many people listening have probably tried binaural beats and different, brainwave entrainment, auditory experiences and whatnot. And I've experienced, I was listening to, you remember the Monroe Hemisync?
The Monroe Institute.
Yeah, Bob Monroe stuff, the hemispheric synchronization. I had those things, I don't know, going back 10, 15 years ago. I think I had them on CD, back in the day. And the idea there is you're putting one input in the left and one in the right, and it's, kind of confusing your brain in the best way possible to create this synchronization between the hemispheres, et cetera. And then it went into binaural beats and all these different things you can listen to that have an effect. So before I get into the other things that I've been snacking, because they relate to sound and not to stimulation and whatnot, how do these tracks work? Because they are super spooky, the sounds, because what I find really interesting about them, there's a lot of things interesting about them, but there's just a few. I think in the app, there's 6 tracks
10.
or something. There's 10? Okay, yeah. So I use probably the same 4 kind of over and over again. And I'm a musician. I got a couple guitars on the wall there. And so I'm pretty decent at memorizing melodies. And these tracks are so interesting because you go into this really spacey, dreamlike theta trip. And so, you don't even know if the thing's still on. You're kind of there, but not there. It's beautiful. It's just like a deep meditation. So you're kind of in and out. But aside from that, I'll almost try to be like, oh, now's the part when it's going to do 4 bars of this little guitar lick. And I try to memorize the melody, and I never can. And even, I've used this thing so much in the few months that I've had it. And like I said, I use maybe 4 tracks. So I'll put on, Recovery 3 or Recovery 2. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one where it starts with the piano, ding, 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 and then goes into the chimes and the harp and then the guitar. And it's like, I think I kind of know the song, quote, end quotes. And then it goes on and I'm totally lost. And then it's just, I'm in some other dimension. It's the weirdest music because nothing ever repeats and it goes through all these different phases, and then there's nature sounds, and it's cognitively, it's impossible to follow. And I find if I sit down and listen to a Beatles song or a Pink Floyd song, or we were just listening to The Dead, like, oh yeah, now's that one bass line, now's this one drum fill, now's this harmony vocal. After you hear it a number of times, you literally memorize the music.
Correct.
And to be a musician, of course, you have to memorize at least your part.
Correct.
So that part just, to me, totally trips me out.
So what the hell's going on?
Yeah, so just dive into the whole, the neuroacoustic
This is going to be
it.
fun. The biochemistry is fun and exciting, and stress and the amygdala and 40 million years of a brain evolution. That's fun. This is really fun. Okay. The whole concept of NuCalm is designed and derived to put the brakes on your stress response, you personally right now, and raise your rest response. The autonomic nervous system has 2 sides. It's a seesaw. You have the sympathetic nervous system, which is your stress response. You have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest response. And it's a zero-sum game. You're never at 0 on both ends. And most people are very high on the sympathetic nervous system. We're all stressed out. We're all pushing towards adrenal fatigue. We're pushing our adrenals too hard. Okay? So conceptually, Dr. Holloway, who has a clinical practice in Texas, serving trauma, PTSD, comorbid with addiction. So there's 7 diagnosable anxiety disorders, according to DSM-5. And really the furthest continuum and the hardest population to help is PTSD, comorbid with addiction. So in the traumatized brain, their brain chemistry has changed, the physiology has changed, blood flow has been restricted to certain areas of the brain, and that person is literally stuck on the memory with the emotional attachment. It's not like memory. Everyone has memories, but they have memory with the hypervigilant fight or flight, I'm going to die attachment. That's why they go to alcohol, and that's why they kill themselves. Okay. So the whole concept here is to say, we don't care. We don't care your epigenetic. We don't care your age. We don't care your disease state. We don't care what you've been through. We don't care how you self-regulate and what you self-soothe with. We're simply going to come in using electrical messaging and chemical messaging, and we're going to put the brakes on the sympathetic nervous system, go bye-bye, and we're going to raise the parasympathetic nervous system by basically managing or modulating your brainwave function from beta. Beta is 13 hertz, all the way up to 38 hertz when you're crazy stressed out. Okay? So we're going to go from beta into alpha. Alpha is 12 hertz to 8 hertz, a slower brainwave form. It can be synonymous with the first stage of sleep. It's also synonymous with transcendental meditation, relaxation, creativity, being in the zone. So many people who meditate over the course of time can bring their brainwave function into alpha. Okay?
Would alpha be what we typically call flow state?
Yes.
So you're conscious, awake, alert,
Yes.
creative, but
and
also relaxed.
Not distracted. I mean, that's flow.
Okay.
When you're in flow state, you're in alpha.
Got it.
Okay. Theta is a slower brainwave form. Theta is more difficult to articulate because you're in and out of a state of consciousness. But that's 7 hertz to 4 hertz. And it's just above sleep. So when I liken NuCalm as a technology that suspends your brainwave function in alpha and theta, it reminds me of a magician like David Copperfield. You're literally levitating. We're slowing you down, and we're putting you just above sleep. It's difficult to articulate because we don't have anything in our vernacular to describe what this feels like. But you're kind of skipping in and out of sleep. It's dark. You go deep. Your body feels incredibly heavy, but your mind wanders. You have some lucid dreaming. You have some weird stuff. You have some historical stuff. There's a lot of healing that goes on when your brain is in theta. So conceptually, the whole idea is to cycle your brainwave function into alpha and theta, reminding ourselves that the brain is the most sophisticated organ ever to exist on this planet. We have a pretty big job ahead of us. The disc in GABA is helping us with the speed of NuCalm, the depth of NuCalm, and the predictability. Because what we're doing in GABA is really tricky. We're basically taking your resistance of adrenaline and we're putting it on the floor. You can't resist the physics we're about to do to you when your GABAergic system's fully activated and you have no adrenaline. It's like having a couple glasses of wine with no cognitive impairment, okay? So you're starting to see how the puzzle works together. So you're going to listen to beautiful music. Underneath the music is some of the most sophisticated, complex mathematics and physics. We're using binaural signal processing, which is what you spoke about, putting disparate frequencies in each ear and allowing the caudate nucleus of the midbrain. Your ears don't hear. Your ears are a carrier signal to the brain. Your brain's what interprets the signal, just like your eyes don't see. Your brain, your visual cortex, is interpreting the signal. So the caudate nucleus of the midbrain is taking these signals from your ears, and when it gets 2 different frequencies, so for example, if we want to bring you into flow state at 12 hertz, the high end of alpha, we can put 512 hertz in your left ear, 500 in your right. You hear it. When it gets to the caudate nucleus of the midbrain, it says, wait a second, there's a dissonance here. We need synchrony. And the brain, this was discovered in 1839 by a German scientist. It's amazing. It's an amazing discovery. Your brain subtracts the difference, and your brain's left with 12 hertz. That's binaural signal
that's crazy.
processing.
That's how that works?
That's how it works.
It's mathematical.
It's all mathematics.
That's crazy.
It's understanding how the brain interprets information and then manipulating the brain to the outcome that you want. So binaural beat and binaural signal processing, when you hear those terms, you're using mathematics to trick the brain and to result in a certain frequency. Okay, so that's one of the fundamental carriers that we use. So then you have to say to yourself, well, NuCalm, you never build resistance to it. You did it twice today. It had the same impact. But when you did stuff at the Monroe Institute or HoloSync or all these apps you can buy online, the first time you did it was amazing. Second time you did it was really good. Third time you did it was good. Fourth time you did it is not so good. Fifth time you did it, no, I was kind of bored with it. And the reason is they weren't neuroscientists. They were audiophiles that caught on to a really cool concept called binaural signal processing. Wow, this is cool. And not understanding the complexity of the brain, their beat was static. So if they want a flow state, it was 12 hertz. So the first time your brain fell for it. Second time your brain, third time, didn't fall for it. Because the reticular activating system of your brain manages all stimulation to your brain. And it has 2 primary functions: pattern recognition and finding shortcuts.
Why would the brain want to resist going into those brainwave states?
Your brain doesn't have a conscious. It's not thinking of resisting. Your brain has to deal with so much stimulation every day, all the time, that it has to find shortcuts or your head would explode. You've lived on this street for how long?
About a year.
Okay. There are probably 90% of the houses you have yet to see. You can live here for 10 years and 7 houses down the street you'll never have seen. Your brain can't take it all in. Visually, you're being stimulated all the time. Auditory, olfactory, right? So the reticular activating system is basically saving us from insanity. That's what it does. So
that's interesting. I wonder if in psychedelic experiences, like something like ayahuasca, the way that I've experienced that is almost as if the veil of perception gets nullified temporarily, and so you can actually take it all in for a brief period of time.
Yes,
and not only take all this in, but take dimensionally other visuals, auditory perceptions.
Well, there's many things happening in a psychedelic experience.
Side note, but I'm thinking about like that. It's sort of like this processor limit that's put on by nature, so that we're not just overwhelmed by so much data everywhere. We don't see every little blade of grass and hear every sound and every bird flying by. We would just we couldn't make it down the street. There's just too much.
No, the movie Limitless.
Too much, right?
You're like, okay, this is cool, but that doesn't sound that cool for that long.
Right. Okay.
So one of the key elements to your brain and the sophistication of your brain is the reticular activating system. So Dr. Holloway, a neuroscientist and quantum physicist, is like, hey, we got to trick this. This is where it gets complex. This is where it's so complex, we have the only patents in the world, not only for NuCalm, but the method used to design the mathematics. So a simple analogy to really understand the complexity of the music in NuCalm is that a typical song is like 5 to 8 megabytes. You download something from iTunes, you download a dead tune, you want to play along with it, 5 to 8 megabytes. One track that you listen to today, Recovery 2, is 789 megabytes of information.
I know, because when you download them to the app, they take forever.
789.
I'll click download and it'll be like at 43% an hour later. So I'm like, what the hell? Download.
789 megabytes. 133 times larger than a song.
What would, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but say like an old analog reel-to-reel 2-inch tape from, like an analog recording studio.
Might be 10, 20 megabytes.
Oh, interesting.
This is all mathematics.
Right.
It's not the tune you're hearing. That doesn't take a lot of the mass. It's mathematics. So the process here is to entrain the brain by using binaural and using your ears as a carrier, and to present your brain with a pattern. We're going to pace your brainwave function like a NASCAR pace car, and we're going to take it from whatever point it's at. You can be crazy stressed out, or you can be functioning pretty calmly. And we're simply going to cycle you into alpha and theta. That's the power of that neuroacoustic software. There's over $4 million of research in that music. Okay? So here's how the process is done. Dr. Holloway say, okay, I want to build NuCalm. NuCalm is going to be designed specifically for a physiological outcome. The outcome is to reduce stress, improve your sleep quality, and balance the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is the seesaw of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and the autonomic nervous system governs human fear, stress, anxiety, and depression. I want to help regulate this without drugs. That's what we're doing, okay? So he'll build a track, and the track will be sent to me, and it's 50 minutes. 50 is the track. There's a reason for that, because you can't just take someone's brain into theta. Your central nervous system would not allow that. It would literally panic. You'd have what's called relaxation-induced anxiety. We take your eyes out and your ears out, and all of a sudden we take you into this deep place of relaxation. It doesn't work that way. So the first 14 minutes of NuCalm is basically preparing you. We take you down, we take you up. We take you down, we take you up. We take you down, we take you up. We say, hey, central nervous system, this is safe. So relax your locus of control and allow us to go on this journey. And you'll notice when you pay attention next time you NuCalm, when we move from melody to environmental sounds is when we take you on the escalator down into theta. We've done our job. Now it's time to go.
And that's when it gets really hard to memorize what the track sounds like.
You never will.
Yeah,
ever.
It's so weird.
Ever. I've been listening to it for 10 years.
Because every once in a while I'll kind of come to, maybe it's at 35 minutes or 40 minutes or something. I go, what? I never heard this before. It's
exactly.
It's really weird.
So the science is all built around a physiological outcome. That's why I said earlier, you need the disc, you need the eye mask, you need all 4 components. If you reverse engineer NuCalm, you would be blown away with how meticulously it's designed, because we're tricking the brain. It's really sophisticated. It's simple in its application, but the science is incredible. So Dr. Holloway submits a file, and the file sounds annoying. It literally sounds like this. You could never listen to that. It has the same physics outcome. The caudate nucleus would derive 12 hertz and 10 hertz and 8 hertz and 6 hertz and 4 hertz, and you'd cycle in alpha and theta, but you'd be annoyed. So from there, we work with Dan Celine. Dan Celine is a 40-plus year veteran of the music industry, had his own record label, and was one of the pioneers for New Age music. So he discovered some of the best artists in the world, like Otmar Liebert. Okay. So he gets the track and we talk, and I say, hey, I'd like you to develop Recovery 2 for stage 4 cancer. Of all the populations we work with, it seems to be the most stressed out. So I'd like you to do the most recovery we can do. And there are scales we can use, and there are melodic interfaces we can use to further create the entrainment. So he'll go through his creative process. And then it's like brain surgery. I then send to him a mathematical matrix. At minute 1, the pitch is 162 and the frequency is 12.5 hertz. At minute 1.5, the pitch is now 159 and the frequency is 11.3 hertz. He has to build music commensurate with the math.
So the pitch is changing throughout those tracks?
Oh, yeah.
Like the key that it's in?
Yeah.
So like I'll hear like A, 10 minutes in, it's like A sharp or in between, even like, what do you call those? What are those called, Joe? Like a half tone, quarter tones, like in between, like on a scale.
Everything's changing all the time.
I was just like Joe Rogan when he talks to his guy, Yeah, Jamie, we need to give you a more active role, Joe. Like, yeah, be Googling shit. What's that thing called? Quarter tone, eighth tone. Thanks, Joe.
So the music is composed with the mathematics. Because if it's not,
that's crazy.
They'll create music that interrupts or creates resistance to the physics. Remember, the whole outcome is designed for physics and create a physiological outcome. We want to pace you in alpha and theta. That's the desired outcome. The music of choice is so that you have a good listening experience. Okay? So literally it takes up to 6 months to build one track. Now in the track, fascinating enough, because I'm a musician as well, guitar player, I was like, can't we just do melody through 50 minutes? No, the brain can't sustain that. It gets bored. And the key here is to keep it always moving. So the environmental sounds, those aren't like normal environmental sounds. Dan and his team took a 3D holophonic microphone to some of the most incredible places on Earth, in Fiji, in Big Sur, at a vortex in Sedona for cicadas. When you're listening to those sounds, you can hear pebbles turning over in the ocean. That's Big Sur at sunrise. So we're using all these elements, all built around entrainment, making sure that we can keep this sophisticated mind in this place of healing for as long as it needs to heal. So one track, Recovery 2, I think has 56 overlays into it. Instrumentation, cicadas, electronic music and entrainment. There's vibrational patterns. So here's what gets really fun. You can't remember melody because your brain is so sophisticated, mostly the reticular activating system, and trying to find the pattern, that the algorithm inside NuCalm is nonlinear. It's constantly moving. That's the difference. That's why we have the only patented technology and the only patented methods on the planet of all this proliferation of binaural signal processing. We have the most sophisticated and most effective simply because of the mathematics of the nonlinear algorithm.
What about the and again, because I'm so kind of in an altered state of consciousness using it, it seems to me that the time signatures don't change. Like I feel like I could count 1, 2, 3, 4 to the little piano part or something. Am I imagining that? I've not tried it, but there does seem to be linearity. What's the word?
There's a linearity to the music.
Linearity
yes.
too.
Yeah, but you notice, and you've already noticed this, it's constantly moving. There's 4 minutes of this, and then it moves to this, it moves to this. Okay, so 2 things are at play. 1, the mathematics inside the NuCalm, the 700 megabytes of information you're forcing your brain to process, is nonlinear to ensure that you will never build resistance to NuCalm. Your reticular activating system will always do its job. It's fascinating to me. Because there's so much complexity in there, we're basically taking all your mind's attention. It really wants to find the pattern, and it can't because it's nonlinear. Okay? I know the pattern. I know the math. I can tell you the math, and my brain still falls for it. I knew NuCalm today and had an incredibly deep experience. 10 years of doing it. So that nonlinear piece is really powerful. Then when you orchestrate and build the soundtrack to go with it, it has to follow entrainment properties. It has to be vibrational. It has to always follow this path of saying, we can't let you, if you can connect to the melody, you'll build an emotional connection to the melody. You'll be more lucid. you won't be slipping into that theta state. We have to dissociate you. We have to dissociate you from time, from space. That's why in NuCalm, there's such time distortion. It happens around the 20-minute mark of NuCalm. You'll never know how long you're in there because you lose sense of time and space.
The only way I know is there's a change that happens in the last maybe 3 minutes toward the end of the tracks. And then I'll start to kind of come to. Maybe it's built in that it brings me back out of theta, I'm assuming.
Do you think maybe it is?
And then I'll be like, oh yeah, it's coming to an end. I know this part. I couldn't like repeat the memory. I couldn't repeat the melody afterward. Like, oh, the piano goes dung, dung, dung right now. I just know, okay, it's almost 50 minutes. And sure enough, I'll look over and I'll be like, oh yeah, we're at 49, 8 minutes, 49 minutes.
The last 4 minutes, we're raising you out of theta.
Oh, okay.
So we take an escalator down. We keep you in theta for 34 minutes. In the last 4 minutes, we're like, hey, we need to repurpose you. We need to give you some energy, focus, bring you up.